Hey guys, and welcome to my channel. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Renata. I actually have a podcast. It's called Stress, which is an acronym that stands for Speaking to Real Emotions Just to Suppress Every Day. You can currently find it on all of your favorite podcast streaming platforms currently. We are currently actually in season 2. I just recorded my first episode for season 2. And I'll be recording my second episode here soon. I'm going to start uploading those to YouTube also, so that we have a double platform so that I can engage my audience a little bit better, just to get more feedback about things that's going on. So I'm going to actually start with this particular series, just introducing myself and just kind of my backstory. So the foundation of my podcast, Stress, really came and emerged out of the pandemic, honestly, in July. There was a lot of things that was going on in America, as well as just within myself, just a lot of different things that I was feeling and I was experiencing. And being in a lockdown nature, like we were in the middle of COVID-19 and taking all the necessary precautions to make sure that we don't get sick, it was bringing up a lot of feelings that for me had always been suppressed. And a lot of the feelings that I was feeling, I felt like there was no outlet, especially to express what I was feeling and get that feedback that I might have been looking for, and coming to find out that just through conversations and connecting with people, that there was a lot of people experiencing the same things that I was experiencing. And so that became my avenue to start just relaying those things that I'm feeling and those things that I'm expressing, and putting relatable anecdotes to what was being discussed in those particular episodes, and then always ending it with a word of encouragement of some sort, or one of my favorite quotes that relates to whatever was being discussed at the time. So again, go back. Again, Stress can be found on all of your favorite streaming platforms. You can also find it at stressed.buzzfeed.com. And again, stream all of season 1 as well as the first episode of season 2, which began to chronicle the first part of this year. So the purpose for this particular episode, I'm going to actually delve into a little bit different territory. I want my YouTube platform to be a little bit different from my podcasting platform. I want to get more involved and start more dialogue around PCOS. If for those of you that don't know what PCOS is, that stands for polycystic ovarian syndrome. Strangely enough, 1 in 10 women actually have PCOS. A lot of times it goes either undiagnosed or misdiagnosed for other conditions, but it is plaguing a lot of women in childbearing age, which is where I fall in this. And just to take you back through my journey of getting to the point of getting an official diagnosis, I just got diagnosed like 2 years ago officially, even though for a long time I had very high inclination just in my personal research that I had PCOS. So to take things back quite far, so I grew up a military kid. My dad was in the Air Force, so we traveled around quite a bit, moved different places and things like that. As a child, I actually got my cycle really young, to me at least. I got my cycle at the age of 9. And thankfully, my mom had had a conversation with me years before to let me know that as I was growing and becoming a woman, that things would change and that would happen. So when it came, I wasn't surprised that it happened because she had told me about it, but I was surprised at the age because nobody I knew in the 4th grade, 3rd grade, I think at that time, even had their period. I think it was one other girl, me and her were friends, but I feel like me and her were very similar. Like we were very tall. We were more developed than most of our classmates. So that kind of thing is how we essentially got on the same page with a lot of stuff. And I think she actually had started a period around that time also. But anyway, in the very beginning, at the age of 9, having my cycles were very painful. Like I was doubled over in pain, cramping all the time. I was crying all the time because it hurt so bad. And it was just, I had heavy cycles. And it was embarrassing for me because, again, I'm the only girl besides my mom in the household. I live, with 2 brothers and my dad, and they're very squeamish about, things like that. So trying to handle that at the age of 9 was a lot mentally taxing on me. And so I think, in a sense, I kind of buried a lot of what I was feeling because I felt like nobody understood. Like I knew my mom had cycles because she's a female, but I didn't know the extent of the things that my mom had going on within herself. That in a sense, genetically passed down to me. My mom had endometriosis. So she had painful cycles and periods as well, to the point that she was missing school a lot when she was younger. So in that, right, we related, but I didn't know a lot of stuff until I got older and I started asking questions about stuff. But anyway, fast forwarding into high school, by that time we were in Germany at that point. And so being in high school, I think I was 16, I believe. I turned 16, that's what it was when we were there. And at that point, I was heavier. I have always been the heavier girl, if that makes any sense. So from a plus size side of things, I've always been heavier. High school wise, I was 16, 18, I think, by the time I got to be 16. And it always made me feel some type of way because I felt like it was hard for me to lose weight. It's always been difficult for me to lose weight. But in high school, in Germany and whatnot, I was on the basketball team. I ended up tearing my ACL playing basketball during the game and ended up having surgery, all that good stuff. As a result of the surgery, my appetite got really weird. So it was really hard for me to eat sometimes without feeling sick, without feeling nauseous all the time. And so a lot of times I was lucky if I ate one time a day, just because I wasn't necessarily feeling well. So throughout that process of me having my knee surgery, I actually lost weight. And I was happy for the progress that I made in losing weight, but I was a little concerned because I was just like, I'm only losing weight because I'm not eating. I don't know if I like that, but it is what it is. So moving on, getting ready to go to prom and things like that, my junior year, same year I tore my ACL, I was concerned. So I got everything I needed for prom and whatnot, and I was concerned about what to do with my hair. You know, the early 2000s was that weird period where people were wearing weave, but they weren't. And I was really trying to do something spectacular hair-wise, whatever, but I always had issues with my hair. Going back to when I was younger, we lived in New Mexico before we went to Germany. My mom's best friend pretty much did my hair majority of the time. So when it came to braids, when it came to, that's pretty much all I wore now I think about it, braids. Any type of braids that I wore, she would do my hair. But in the process of her doing my hair, a lot of times I would end up with like pustules in my hair where they would just weep and ooze. It was really gross, really icky. Sometimes I would get sores and they would bleed and stuff like that, and never understood why those things were happening. And a lot of times it was always, oh, you're scratching your scalp. You shouldn't be scratching your scalp. It's poisonous to your scalp. That's what's causing the sores and stuff like that. And I'm just like, I'm not scratching my scalp, guys. Like I have braids and stuff like, and I was very active in sports. So I was sweating all the time and things like that. And they were like, stop scratching your scalp. And I'm like, okay, even if I stop scratching my scalp, these sores are still here. They're still, you know, weeping, oozing, whatever the case is. And the concern was my hair started breaking off like in the middle of my hair. Number one, that's the symptom part of it. And again, never understood why. As far as eating habits were concerned, again, we were an active family, like a familial unit. All of us played sports. We were always doing something. We were always on the go. So as far as our eating habits were concerned, like we ate out, but even then we went to different places where we had a variety of things to choose from. So for instance, New Mexico, we ate out at like this place called Furs. Furs is like the equivalent of Piccadilly. So you had different options of food that you could eat. Like we had, of course, fish, we had chicken, you could choose your sides, all that good stuff, whatnot. So we made, you know, pretty good, you know, choices, things like that. My mom still cooked on a regular basis. Like although we ate out because again, we were active and stuff like that. Excuse me, my mom cooked on a regular basis. So don't miss that. Like my mom throws down in the kitchen. So a lot of the stuff that was being consumed was healthy. Like honestly, like we didn't have like bad habits. Of course, everybody has their things that they like, of course, that may not always be the healthiest. Soda being one of mine, like Dr. Pepper is my crutch. I'm not even gonna lie about that. But again, we had a healthy balance when it came to food, like when talking about consuming things, because again, we're all being provided by my parents. So therefore my brothers are healthy. We're all consuming the same type of food. I'm the only one that's bigger than average or bigger than I should be. So going on, again, in high school, went to my first prom my junior year, noticing that my hair is like breaking off in the middle part of my hair. So I got really focused on taking care of my hair and trying to make sure that I'm doing everything I can possible to make sure that it's growing properly, it's doing what it needs to do. I'm starting to do research at this point to figure out what are the best methods to take care of my hair. So I started extending my time frame in between getting perm. So instead of going every 6 to 8 weeks, I would stretch it out for 3 months at a time. So I was only getting 4 perms a year. So by the time I get some new growth, by the time I get another perm, my hair's grown out quite a bit just to reduce the amount of chemicals that I was putting on my scalp, because I thought maybe relaxers are the problem. So getting to my senior prom graduation, they were all like bunched together within like a 2 to 3 week span. So I'm thinking to myself, let me be unique. Again, most people I knew were getting weaves and stuff. I don't know if they were glued in, sewed in, whatever the case, it didn't matter because I wasn't getting it. I didn't have the money because I bought everything when it came to my prom. Like I brought my dress, everything. So in doing all of that, again, I did my own hair. So I did pretty much what everybody was doing at the time, where you would do your braids to like a certain point, maybe like halfway. People were putting clips and stuff on it. I didn't do clips. I just did like a rod set on the rest of my hair so I could have spiral curls, very similar, kind of like this a little bit. So it came out cute. I wore that for like 2.5 weeks just to get through prom, graduation, backward, all that good stuff. And it turned out good. So I think that was the first time I noticed that I actually had like a spot, like a legit bald spot. And I was just like, what is going on? So, you know, prom wraps up and everything. I'm making choices as far as what college I'm going to. Ended up going to school in my parents' hometown. And it dawned on my mom as well, I'm getting ready to leave and go back. And she was like, hey, have you ever had a Pap Smear? And I was like, no, I never had one. And she was like, okay, let's get you scheduled for one. So my doctor that was in Germany at the time was like super booked. We couldn't go. And she was like, well, because there's a military installation in the same town that my school was at, I could use my military benefits that I was still on my parents at the time to go to the base, and I need to establish a doctor anyway. So she was like, that's perfect. So she went with me. We got everything set up. And this was the first time I was having to fill out like medical related paperwork for myself. And it was asking questions like, oh, when was your last cycle? And I distinctly remember thinking like, man, it's been a long time since I've had a cycle, because by the time we moved from New Mexico going to Germany, I distinctly remember there would be extended periods of time where I would not have my cycle. And I mean, 3, 4, 5 months sometimes, no cycle. But then when I would get one, it would be long and it would be really heavy. So again, going 3, 4, 5 months without a cycle, then I would get one and my cycle would be on for 2 to 3 weeks at a time. And it's heavy the entire time. Or if it's lightening up, like the last 2 days out of the 3 weeks that I'll have my cycle would be light. And when I say light, to me, that would be an average period that most people have on your regular days, not your heavy days or your light days, like regular. So again, going into that first Pap Smear appointment, I didn't know, you know, that wasn't normal, because that was my normal for so long. Like I didn't know any different. So sorry, y'all. So going into that appointment, I told my doctor that same thing. I was just like, yeah, for years now, my cycle has been what I found out was irregular. And I was like that, and I told him, I was like, that was normal to me to go half a year, sometimes no cycle, have one, it lasts for 3 months or 3 weeks to a month. It's pretty heavy the majority of the time. And after that, it goes away. I may not see it for another, 3, 4, or 5 months, whatever the case is. To me, that was normal. And I remember him telling me, like, that's not normal. Most women have their cycle every month, or at least every 6 to 8 weeks. You should have anywhere from 8 to 10 periods at minimum a year. And I was just like, wow, like people really do this. Okay. And so at that point, they actually set up a vaginal ultrasound for me to come back and get that done so they could check to see if I had any growths on my ovaries. So again, that was the first time I heard about PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. And they said that's, at that time, it was common for people to have cysts on their ovaries. And their concern was with cysts on the ovaries that they can burst, they can bleed, they can cause pain, they can cause a lot of issues with your reproductive system. And so that's why they wanted to schedule that and get me back in to get me evaluated for that. So I was like, okay, cool. So I did blood work and stuff that day. I think I came back a week later. They did the vaginal ultrasound. They didn't find any cysts on my ovaries. But basically they were telling me, they were like, I had all the symptoms of having PCOS. I just literally did not have the cyst on my ovaries. So again, I had the thinning of the hair in the top of my head, like literally like male pattern balding. Like I had that. Like there's nothing here in the middle. So you always see me with something on my head because I'm still self-conscious about it. My husband doesn't care, but I'm still self-conscious about it in my own way, and I'm still working through that. But the male pattern baldness, hirsutism, which is essentially hair, facial hair and stuff like that, I do have. I tweeze for the most part to get rid of it. I'll occasionally do like the eyebrow shavers, and I'll occasionally just shave my face when I feel like there's just too much of the, I forget what it's called, like vellus hair that'll appear in your face and things like that. So I'll do that sometimes, like for my wedding, I did that. But yeah, that's a lot of common symptoms. Weight gain, rapid weight gain. I definitely gained weight, especially when I went to college. And true enough, when you're in college, you know, you're not eating the way that you used to, the way your parents feed you and stuff like that. But the same thing that I had in high school where my appetite changed, where I would be nauseous in the morning, still to this day, 15, 16 years later, I still just I don't do breakfast too heavy for real, simply because when I would wake up in the morning, I am nauseous. I've always been that way since at least high school. I don't do heavy breakfasts. You're lucky if you see me eat breakfast most times. If I do, it's probably a weekend brunch situation. And I'm only cool with that because that's probably like 10, 11 o'clock, which is essentially lunchtime. And my body has calmed down and stuff like that. So, but anyway, not that that has anything to do with PCOS, but that's just me personally. But yeah, so we've got the hair loss, we've got hirsutism, rapid weight gain, heavy cycles that last for a long time. So those were 4 of the 6 symptoms at the time. I forget what the other one was, but the other one is definitely having the cyst on the ovaries. And from their definition at the time, they're looking for you to have, at minimum, for them to officially say, yes, you have PCOS, you had to have cysts on your ovaries, and I didn't have that. But of the other symptoms, I think I had 4 of the 5 other symptoms besides the cyst of the ovaries. And so the doctor at the time was just like, well, based on the vaginal ultrasound, we did find cysts. We can't make a definitive diagnosis and say you have PCOS, but we can start treating the symptoms. Fun fact, most doctors do not know how to treat PCOS because it is a hormonal-based disorder. And so technically we need to see endocrinologists that can address the hormonal side of things and do the background research in the blood work to figure out what our A1C looks like, what our iron levels look like, things like that, to address a lot of what our system and our body is attacking to cause PCOS to occur, whether you have the cyst or not. So just background information on that. So I went for a long time being treated for the symptoms of PCOS, even though I didn't have a definitive diagnosis. And again, even at that point, because again, this was just my freshman year in college, I'm still 18 at the time, you know, getting all of this testing and stuff done, which I was grateful for. But again, in my research, I really wasn't researching in depth to see what are the side effects potentially of taking medication prescribed to me to treat symptoms of PCOS and how that could affect me. Because again, I had lost weight in high school again as a result of my appetite changing after that surgery. And so I was actually down a little bit. I went from a size 18 to a 16, which wasn't much, but it was significant enough to me. My freshman year, the fall semester, I actually lost more weight. And that was simply due to the location of my campus. I didn't know anybody. I'm very much a homebody type person. So essentially my routine at the time was during the week, I would stay at school in my dorm room. Dinner service was from 4:30 to 6 or 6:30, one of the two. And then after that, if you didn't have a car to get on and off campus, there really wasn't any options for you as far as getting something to eat after dinner service at 6:30. So we had one little spot on campus, but I didn't have much money, honestly, my freshman year. Like my parents would send me money. and whatnot, but I used that money to take care of my personal bills that I had created. Like I had got a cell phone, things like that. So my cell phone bill, I believe, was like $88 out of the 100 I would get sent for the month. So literally I had like $12 to my name for the rest of the month. You know what I'm saying? And so I was buying myself like the essential things that I needed, which would be like my toiletries, my hygiene, stuff like that, you know. And there was a dollar store like literally down the street from my dorm. So I would just go to that dollar store, buy my hygiene stuff that I needed that could at least get me through, you know, the next couple of weeks or whatever until I got some more money from my parents or whatever, because I'm not the type of person to ask people for money. No matter how much I need it, I'm going to find a way to get something done myself. And so again, during the week, I'm at school in my dorm room. On the weekend, because I stayed in the town where my grandparents were, I would go to my grandparents' house for the weekend. My aunt had just moved back at that point, so she would come and pick me up on Fridays and she would bring me back on Sundays. So on Fridays, when she would come and get me, a lot of times we would just ride around the city. She would go see her friends and things like that. You know, she was like, Nisa, you need anything? I'm gonna stop by the store and get some stuff because mama needs something or whatever. And so she a lot of times would take care of my hygiene type stuff. So the little $20, $21, $22 I would actually keep to myself. I could do little things like that that I wanted or needed to with it. So a lot of times that's how that would work out. But again, in addressing the PCOS side of things, the way that my doctors decided to attack and treat what they perceived to be PCOS, even though they couldn't give a definitive diagnosis. The two worst things that could have happened to me was they put me on metformin and they put me on birth control. Those are, to me, in my opinion, those are the two worst things I could have did at the time. And thinking back on it, the two should have played off of each other. And honestly, it shouldn't have caused an issue weight-wise for me, but it did. So I was taking birth control. Gosh, I started with orthotricycline. I remember that. I was on orthotricycline for a long time when I really think about it. And then I think I ended up being on, was it Yaz? I don't even remember the name of it, but I do distinctly remember orthotricycline because I was on that for a minute. I remember it had the little spin dial in the middle and things like that. And I just remember not liking the feeling I got from taking birth control. Like I remember having consistent headaches all the time. I had migraines all the time from taking it. I remember weight-wise, I ballooned up so quick and so bad. And again, my eating habits, again, was very focused on what the schedule was in the cafeteria at school because my housing and meals were paid for through that. So if I got up in time for breakfast, because again, I'm not a breakfast person for real, but I would make the effort to go. I would have grits and eggs and sausage for breakfast. And again, that's if I went, typically it was on a weekend. Lunchtime, again, depending on what the meal of the day was, if I liked it, cool. If not, I'm always game for a salad. So we had a great salad bar. A lot of times I was eating salad along with whatever the meal choice was for lunch. And then for dinner, same scenario. If that didn't work out and I didn't want a salad, we had a sandwich bar right there with the salad bar. So I would eat that. But again, outside of that, my meal schedule, like I still wasn't eating terrible, if that makes sense. The friends and things that I did make, we were very economical in the things that we did. The people that had cars, we would carpool together and say, hey, somebody's going to the grocery store, which was also down the street from our school in the opposite direction from the dollar store. And it was walking distance. It's just going to an HBCU, you don't go walking after dark. That's just fact. You don't do that. But anyway, so again, we were very economical. Like a lot of us didn't have a lot of money. So a lot of times we would pool our money together and we would go grocery shopping for our friend unit, or if our rooms were close together, whatever it was, we'll keep some stuff in this refrigerator, some stuff in that refrigerator. And a lot of times we would make like a potluck situation out of it, especially like after holidays and stuff. But anywho, again, eating habits weren't really that bad, to be honest. From a workout standpoint, I wasn't still working out as much as I was in high school, like because I wasn't involved in sports as much. I was doing like intramural softball and stuff like that in the springtime. the occasional pickup game of basketball if it, struck me that way, but I wasn't as active, but still my weight was continuously climbing up. And I know a lot of it had to do with stress. Um, Again, being in my program at the time, there was a lot of stress involved in that. Distinctly remember a lot of late nights staying up, a lot of what do you call it, all-nighters, putting together projects and stuff and rehearsing presentations, things like that with different people. So there was a lot of high stress involved in those situations. And again, metformin was prescribed to me and I was taking it for a while, but it irritated and upset my stomach so bad, like I couldn't function. And I know a lot of people were saying, oh, just get the extended release. I got the extended release and I was still having the same issue. And I was just like, I can't function like this. Taking this medication is making me nauseous, making me sick, and making me run to the bathroom all day. Like, that's what kind of life is that? Or I always have to stay close to the toilet. You know what I'm saying? Like, that wasn't working for me. So went on like that for years. Graduated college. I stayed in town where my school was for another 2 years before I left. And I moved here to Nashville. And in moving to Nashville, like I was definitely, it was the beginning of the year, it's January when I moved, January 2013 when I moved here to Nashville. And I made a promise to myself that I wasn't going to bring old habits and old energy and old things with me to a new place that wasn't beneficial to me and my growth. And so in doing that, I was taking a leap because I felt like, again, my birth control was really holding on to me in a way that I didn't feel like was positive. So I let the birth control go completely. I think I took my last pill, I think, for my birth control in the pack, like a day or two before I moved up here, and I didn't renew the prescription. I didn't try to transfer it or nothing like that because I was like, I need to get new doctors. I need to get new OBGYNs. Whatever the case is, I know I'm gonna have to go through that whole process of letting them know again what's going on with me. But I'm game for it at this point because I don't want to continue to put these chemicals in my body that I feel like is wreaking havoc on me from the inside out at that point. Because again, I had ballooned up so far that I was unrecognizable to myself. Like, I know I've always been plus size and I've loved myself and my family has loved me despite all of that. And I've never been ashamed to be a plus size woman. I feel like I carry it well. And it was bad to me because I was unrecognizable to myself. And I was just like, I don't like this feeling. So I stopped taking it. And I'm not gonna say strangely enough, but to me at the time, it was strangely enough when I moved here for my first actual job in my career outside of college that I lost, I think it was 60 pounds that year, just not taking birth control. Again, my eating habits did not change. My lifestyle change actually went the opposite direction. I wasn't even remotely close to doing anything sports related at all. I wasn't participating in anything that was like, let me go work out. I didn't have a gym membership, nothing. My eating habits did not change. I literally just left the place, stopped taking birth control, and I lost 60 pounds. I think it was like 62 to be exact. I lost like 62 pounds that year. And again, I was proud of myself because I was just like, I remember distinctly saying, I haven't done anything different. I literally have just been eating like I normally eat. I wasn't eating out as much. And even then, like the job I had in Alabama at the time didn't allow me to consistently eat out on a regular basis. It was very much planned. Like payday is Friday, cool. I'm either going out for lunch or dinner, but not both. That's it. And so I stuck to that schedule even when I moved here. Like, okay, I'm making more money than I was down there, but the cost of living is different up there, which is something I didn't understand at first. So once all the bills are paid, this is how much money I have left. I'm putting this in savings, and then the rest of it, I'm making a decision to eat out lunch or dinner, not both. And I'm only doing it once for the weekend. So I need to pick between Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. That's it. The rest of the week, I would meal prep or I would cook something for dinner and I would put those in Tupperware containers, take to work the rest of the week. Same routine, nothing changed. So again, lost 62 pounds that year. I ended up changing jobs that very next year, January of 2014, got a new job. doing the same thing, making $6 more an hour. Catch that teeth. Anyway, went to that job, started working there. Again, nothing changed, but my headaches came back really, really bad. Really bad to the point I went to urgent care. And they told me at that point, they were like, you've got high blood pressure and we believe you have type 2 diabetes. And I was like, oh crap. So they put me on medication for both. They put me on losartan, hydrochlorothiazide mixed together for the high blood pressure, and then for the diabetes, again, they put me back on metformin. And I told her the same thing. I was like, listen, my stomach did not agree with it. And she was just like, well, we don't have anything else for you. Take it. Well, like, fine. Started taking that. That happened around March that year when I went to the doctor. Got the medication, started taking them, and I was just having a bad reaction, period. So she changed my medication, high blood pressure wise, from the losartan hydrochlorothiazide to lisinopril. And that's where shit went left, to be very frank. So I ended up losing my job. I think it was May. I got fired. But I got fired because I was having horrible reactions to lisinopril. And that was because my doctor didn't do her background research, essentially, before prescribing me the medication or do follow-up check-ins and stuff like that. And I had no knowledge because I wasn't checking at the time, and I should have, which is something I do now. I wasn't paying attention to potential side effects of what the medicine could be. So a lot of times, what people are seeing now with lisinopril, when you prescribe it to African Americans, a lot of people are having one of two reactions. They're either having the lip swelling, lip and tongue, or one or the other swelling so bad that it's pronounced and you can see it, or we're having the reaction where we're constantly coughing. That was my reaction, constantly coughing all the time. And I didn't know why. Like, no matter what I did, I would do throat lozenges, I would do peppermints, I was drinking tea, water with lemon. No matter what I did, it would not stop the coughing. And so it was interrupting my ability to work, which is how bad it was. And I remember my manager at the time, she got so frustrated with me, and she was just like, listen, either you get this under control or we're going to get fired because you can't get your work done, essentially. And I was just like, well, clearly you can tell that I'm having something going on. I had an appointment scheduled with my doctor, but because she was so backed up, because again, I'm in a bigger city now, it's not like I can call today and get an appointment tomorrow unless she has a cancellation. And I was just like, that's just not how it's working. So she had gave me some, what do you call, like FMLA, LOA type paperwork or whatever, essentially just for the doctor to confirm that whatever's going on with me, that's the cause of why I was having issues being able to perform properly at work. Even though that wasn't the root of it. Honestly, the root of it was I wasn't properly trained. Start there. But anyway, so I got let go from my job. It kind of put me in a funk for a little while because I was just like, what am I doing that I can't be successful at something I went to school for? So it really put me in a place that just wasn't good mentally, physically. After getting fired, I went back to the doctor, and then that's when she figured out, like, oh crap, you're having one of the side effects, so we're going to stop you from taking this. And that's when she put me on atenolol, which is what I'm still on now to this day. Have no issues with it, so that's perfect. They took me off of metformin because, again, I was still having the same side effects, and they put me on, I don't even remember what they put me on at that point, honestly. But the doctor I was seeing after I saw her for that appointment, she ended up moving out of state, so I never saw her anymore at that point. I ended up getting another job a couple months later where I work at now. So I got a whole new doctor, whatnot, went through that process. So in getting that job, or the first job I had with this company, I went and got a new doctor because that insurance covered different people, whatever the case is, which put me in a better facility, honestly, at the time. And the first scare that I had related to the side effects of PCOS, I had went to my brother's house for dinner, and his then wife had made some chili. that she saw in a cookbook that Aisha Curry, she had just put her cookbook out at the time, and she had bought it, and she saw this chili recipe made with ground lamb and some other stuff and beer, whatever the case is. And I was curious. I ate some. It was good that night. I didn't want a whole lot because, again, I'm skeptical when it comes to food. Thank the military for that. But I was skeptical of it or whatever, ate a little bit. It was good. So I took a bowl with me home, and I was like, cool, I can eat this for lunch the next day. And that was like a Sunday. I think I woke up at like 2-3 o'clock that next morning, Monday. And my side was just killing me. Like it felt like somebody was punching the crap out of me. And as much as I tried to sleep through it, it just kept going and it kept waking me up. And I was just like, I don't know what's going on, but this crap hurts. I tried to give it another 15-20 minutes. It kept getting worse. So I got up, I drove myself to the emergency room. Not smart, but economical because I wasn't about to call the ambulance. I called my friend, my line sister. Well, I really texted her and I was just like, I'm on my way to the emergency room, so I'm in pain. And she was like, all right, keep me informed. My family has a group text. I sent a group text saying, hey, I'm at the emergency room, so I'm in pain. I'll let y'all know what's going on when I find something out. So fast forward, after I get there, tell them what's going on, they get me checked in. They end up doing, I think it's an MRI, and that's with the contrast, whatever. That's when they saw that my appendix wasn't functioning properly, and they said it was on the verge of bursting, so I had needed to have immediate surgery that same day. So again, send a text to my friend in my family group saying, hey, I'm about to have surgery probably like in the next 20-30 minutes because of my appendix and whatnot. Got through that process. After the surgery, they ended up keeping me extra couple of days because they said my blood sugars was in the 300s. And I was like, wow, that's not good. Like, how did that happen? And they're like, well, have you ever been told that you have type 2 diabetes? And I told them the story about how when I first moved here and I was having headaches, I went to urgent care and they told me that that's when I got diagnosed with high blood pressure and type 2 diabetes. What I had been taking wasn't working for me and things like that. So immediately they got me in to see a doctor. I think it was the next couple of days after I got released from the hospital. That's when I saw endocrinologist for the first time. And I loved her. I wish I could still see her because she specialized in not just diabetes, but how the body functions in regards to diabetes and how your body processes different things differently and how your body reacts to things differently, especially based on certain conditions that you may have, which can trigger things. And so when I first met her, it was a very good conversation because she was very into what my daily life was. What was my daily structure like? What my stress level was like in different situations and different scenarios. Like she was taking all that stuff into account. She was more concerned about what the lifestyle was and how my lifestyle contributed to my blood sugars getting to the point that it was. And she said, more than likely, especially for that time frame, she's like, even though I had been diagnosed, I hadn't been on medication related to diabetes for a while. She was like, based on the fact that I had been to a doctor before and had been, looked at and evaluated for PCOS, she was like, PCOS more than likely is what it is that you have, and more than likely what is pressing the issue with your with my blood sugars in reference to type 2 diabetes as well as high blood pressure. And she was like, those are symptoms a lot of times which are brought on by the hormones being out of whack when it comes to PCOS. And that's when she started giving me more information and prompting me to go and research for myself what the deal was with PCOS. Because again, those things within PCOS with the hormone levels being off will trigger things like blood sugars being out of whack and triggering the blood pressure and things like that. And she was like, especially if you work or you live in or you operate in stressful environments, that's only making those conditions even more worse than they already are. Being overweight, of course, already is a factor in that. But again, like she said, PCOS plays a big role in what your cravings are like, in making you feel like you need to eat the wrong foods, which a lot of times are carb heavy or sugar heavy, which is going to aid in your body holding on to what you already have from a weight standpoint, weight wise, because it's triggering your fight or flight response to make your body hold on to things, feeling like it's in a state of trauma. And I was just like, wow. So I got a new OBGYN around that same time frame. I want to say it was like a year later, I went to appointment because our OBGYNs here are few and far between. And you literally have to make your appointment at least 6 to 8 months out if you want a decent appointment. So went to see the OBGYN. And the first OBGYN was very dismissive. I ended up having to change doctors, same practice, but ended up getting a different doctor altogether because the first one was dismissive. And essentially he was just like, well, you're overweight, you need to lose weight. From my charts and things, it looks like you do have type 2 diabetes and high blood pressure. Your weight's not adding to any of that as far as making it any better. So you need to lose some weight. That'll improve the type 2 diabetes. That'll improve your high blood pressure. And again, bring your weight down. So whenever you're prepared to have kids, you can do it. And I was just like, whoa. Did you even bother to ask what's going on? Did you even bother to pull my full record and see what's been going on? Because again, at this point, I think we had just got all my files from all the different places I had been. Again, because of the military, they have their own system. I had to go and request all of my records back from when I was born just to make sure everything lines up with what I'm currently doing now, so they can at least see the history of what has occurred. And again, even in that, in the check-in paperwork, they asked the same questions, like when my last period was, what the frequency of my periods was, were they light, heavy, things like that. Are they irregular? Are they normal? Have I ever had a normal pap smear? Like, he didn't read through any of that stuff. Like, I've never had an abnormal pap smear or nothing, but didn't read through any of the information where I was specifically stating that I have irregular periods. I've been told that I have, possibly PCOS, but I didn't actually have cysts on my ovaries. And at this point, this was 2018. And I was telling at the time, like when I put on the paperwork, it was like, I've been evaluated for PCOS, but that was, at the time, 10, 12 years at that point since I had a vaginal ultrasound. The first time when they said I didn't have any cyst on my ovaries, so they couldn't classify me as having PCOS, like they didn't read through any of that stuff. So I got a new OBGYN. And this was at the point where they were changing the rules with insurance, where they said you could only get one pap smear every couple of years or whatever. Me being me, I was like, forget that. I'm going back. If I got to pay for an appointment, I will. Ended up doing that anyway. But again, I didn't get another appointment for another year because, again, they're so book solid. So 2019, I never forget it, October 2019, I went to my pap smear. I had a different OBGYN, and I loved her because she actually sat down and she paid attention to what I had put on the paper. And she said, well, why did they give you a vaginal ultrasound when you came before? And I told her the same thing. And I was like, he was very dismissive, which is why I asked for somebody else. So she went through, the regular tests and everything. And I think it's protocol in some places where they have to offer different vaccinations. They have to offer different forms of birth control, whatever, if you're sexually active, all that good stuff. So she recommended, I think it was Mirena, and I was just like, no, I'm not doing that. And she was like, well, it's really good because of this, that, and the third. And I was honest with her, and I told her, I said, no, I know too many Black women that have had Mirena, other IUD options, and they don't stay put. They end up going to different places in your body and messing stuff up. And at the time, my then sister-in-law literally had just had a procedure to have her IUD removed because it had moved from the original place where it was placed at. And I was just like, no, call it fear, call it scare, whatever you want to. There's nothing wrong with my internal organs, my reproductive organs. We're going to leave it that way. So be it. She was like, all right, cool. She tried to get me to, I think it was do the Gardasil shot. And I was just like, no. She was like, well, it helps prevent HPV and all this other stuff, what not. And I was like, that's great, but I'm good. So anyway, she went on and she was just like, yeah, I see the information here about, you being looked at, evaluated for PCOS a long time ago, but she was like, with all the factors that you mentioned here with the period irregularities, and she's like, I see the hirsutism, again, facial hair that grows in certain places. You mentioned that you have thinning and balding, because at that point, my hair in the middle, like, it's done. Like, there's nothing there. And I was just like, it's progressively gotten worse over the years. So she did schedule me for a vaginal ultrasound, kind of same scenario, came in like a week later, did the vaginal ultrasound. At that point, she literally told me, she was like, I don't see any cysts on your ovaries, but she was like, of the symptoms, I think it had increased to 7 different symptoms it could possibly be. She was like, you literally have 6 of the 7 symptoms. The only thing you don't have is cyst on your ovaries. But she was like, at this point, because there has been an increase of women, again, in childbearing age, that have all the symptoms of PCOS outside of the cyst, she was like, we go ahead and we can go ahead and diagnose and say that this is PCOS, because everything else that happens in relation to having issues with your reproductive symptoms, all the symptoms are there other than the cyst. And she was like, this is not saying that the cyst can't develop. It just means that maybe your body's in a certain state right now where it's not developing cyst, which is a good thing, because she was like, the concern is if you have the cyst, then they do have to periodically check and make sure that the cysts, one, aren't growing, and two, that the cysts either are not about to burst or they're not on the verge of getting to a point where they can burst, where you have to go in and have a whole procedure to fix things. So it was October 2019 before I got an actual diagnosis from the first time I heard about it in, I think it was August of 2006. So we're talking 13 years before I got an official diagnosis of PCOS, even though all along I had heard of it. Because mind you, along this journey, one of my really good friends, I think to this day still hasn't been diagnosed with PCOS, but she had the exact same issues I had with extremely heavy periods, where it would just continuously go. And for her, she was having the pain with her to the point that her cycle would not stop, ended up having to take her to the doctor. And as a fix, the doctor gave her birth control to stop her period. Like, how ironic is that? I had another friend, exact same issue. Only problem was with her, she was in a situation where she didn't have health insurance and she was concerned about racking up a bill. So she didn't go to the doctor. So she literally was on her cycle, I think, for about 7-8 weeks. And the only reason why she ended up going to the doctor is, I think, a family member of hers came in town. They were supposed to be going somewhere. And when they saw her, or they went to her house to look for her, she didn't answer the door. And so they knew something was wrong. So they finally got into her place and they were asking her why she didn't answer the door. And she was just like, I literally did not have the energy to get up. And so in looking at her, they were like, she looked gray. Like, as a Black woman, she looked gray, and it was concerning. I distinctly remember it being summertime, and we had went somewhere. She was riding in my car. I always keep a jacket in my car just in case, you go into a building, you go somewhere where it's a little chilly or whatever. And in Alabama, we were doing something. We were outside. I think we were at a friend's house, doing a barbecue, something of that nature. I don't really remember, but I distinctly remember her sitting in my car with my jacket on, and I was like, it's summertime. Like, it's 90 something degrees out here, even in the, like, it was nighttime, and she had a jacket on. I was just like, are you okay? And she's like, I'm fine, I'm just tired and I'm cold. And I was like, that's weird, because it's, again, Alabama, is like 97, 98 degrees out here, but whatever. He didn't think nothing of it. But again, her sister had came. She didn't answer the door. Her sister was concerned because she looked great, took her to the hospital, and her blood count was single digits. I think she said it was like a 9 or something. And they was like, the blood count should be anywhere between like 13 and up or something to that effect. So she ended up having to get blood transfusions, plural, to get her back up to the double digits, because her blood count was so low from being on her cycle too long. Her iron levels, again, were low because she was bleeding so profusely for so long without it stopping. So again, that's at least 2 people I know for a fact that have had that issue. And if I'm not mistaken, the one that ended up having the transfusion, I'm pretty sure she got the diagnosis of PCOS, because she ended up having to go see a specialist after that ordeal, where they had to help regulate bodily hormones and all this other stuff, because she did have hirsutism. She had, I think they call it the buffalo hump. It's like in the back of your neck, essentially. She did have that. She had the hirsutism with the hair growth on her chest. It was a lot of different things that she had, and at the time we didn't know. Like, those were some of the added on symptoms that were added to the original list of like 5 or 6. But she had all of the symptoms, literally, other than the cyst on her ovaries. So, I mean, thankfully she's gotten that addressed, and she's much, much, much better than she was at the time. But it's affecting so many people, and sadly enough, it's affecting a lot of Black women that I know. we're childbearing age. And I know a lot of times, again, in the communities that we're in and the situations that we're in, a lot of times we don't have access to healthcare like we should. And it definitely just could be a financial situation. It could be just a job situation, like the jobs that we're working, yes, we're getting insurance, but sometimes our insurances aren't covering nothing. You go to these appointments to try to address things that's wrong with you, and your copays are exorbitant amounts. Like, thankfully, my copays are like $40, but at the same time, once I meet a certain minimum, I'm paying out of pocket for everything else. And if I don't have $1,000 to go to an appointment just for somebody to take an ultrasound of my vagina and look at it and say, hey, I see some things here that's not right. Let's get this stuff addressed. If I don't have the money for that stuff, what's going to end up happening is I go to the appointment to find out what's wrong with me. I'm going to get, some medication or something, a prescription written to me where if I can't cover the prescription, I got to pay out of pocket, and prescription prices are ridiculously high amounts. If I need to see my endocrinologist, I'm paying a specialist fee. So this is not a regular copay. We're talking, $60, $80, $100, just to see this person who literally is only going to talk to me for 5 to 10 minutes, because they're going to be looking at charts and graphs, and they're going to be looking at data when it comes to my blood work. Let's not talk about the fact that I have to pay the lab company, if it's not within the same medical practice, that does my lab work for me. Like, there is a lot of costs associated with it. And I think, sadly, we live in a society where it's not easy for people, especially Black women, to take care of themselves without there being some scrutiny attached to it. People always want to applaud, especially Black women, and say that we're strong, we're resilient, and things like that. And the thing is, y'all got to realize we're tired of being strong and resilient. There are things that are legitimately happening that makes us feel bad. There are things in society that have pushed us beyond our limits that we keep fighting through, and y'all keep saying we're strong and resilient and we're a beacon of hope and light. I don't want to be your beacon of hope and light. I want you to pay attention to the fact that I'm in pain. I want you to pay attention to the fact that I'm tired. I'm legitimately tired. I want rest. I should not be scrutinized simply because I want to rest. I want to take a few days off. I want to go have drinks with my friends. I want to go to brunch with my friends. I want to go on vacation and enjoy the hell out of myself without anybody trying to say, oh, you shouldn't be doing this. You need to get back to your instincts of being a mother, being a wife, whatever the case may be. Like, there's so many hats that we wear as Black women that it's not even funny that we can't even address the health things that are happening with us. Nobody wants to even go to that side, even from a standpoint of being in the hospital. The medical profession doesn't pay attention to Black women when we say we're in pain. They don't believe us. They firmly believe that we don't feel pain when it comes to certain things, and that's just not true. We feel the pain, and we've endured the pain long enough, and it's just, pay attention. Take us seriously. Do the homework to figure out what is causing these things. I love the fact that PCOS is being recognized on a more broader scale, but there's not enough money and research being put into PCOS to really pinpoint and figure out what is it that triggers PCOS to happen. It makes no sense that women literally, and I'm not even just speaking about Black women anymore, I'm speaking in general, that women literally are going through their lives and living their lives, and all of a sudden things start changing with them, and not just gradual little changes. We're talking about rapid changes. I've literally watched a friend balloon up legitimately 75, 80, if not 100 pounds in the course of the last couple of years. She looks nothing like herself anymore. And a lot of the issues that she has to do with her reproductive system. But again, she's in that space where she's working a job in her career, but her career doesn't pay her what she's supposed to. So therefore, her health is suffering as a result because she doesn't want to rack up another bill. And I'm just like, this is crazy. Is this the ploy to make sure that we don't reproduce anymore? Like, what is it? Why are we not entitled simply to have our female anatomy checked on a regular basis to make sure we're okay? Like, it makes no sense to me that they've even changed, like I talked about before, they've changed where women used to be able to go yearly to get a Pap Smear and get everything checked out, make sure everything's okay. They then extended it to say, as long as you have a good Pap Smear, you can go every 3 years. And I thought even then, like, that's not safe, because if something happens, say I get infected with something that doesn't show up right away, via the Pap smear or via blood work, I've got to wait 3 more years before I get tested again. What if there's some cancerous cells there and they're just growing for 3 years and I know nothing about it? By the time I get back here 3 years later, this thing is, grown to an absorbent amount where I'm having to do costly procedures now, things again that I cannot afford, simply because from an insurance standpoint, you don't want to pay for regular checkups when it comes to that stuff from female anatomy. I can go do a health checkup with my doctor every year. I can do a physical, but a physical from my regular PCM is not going to take care of my downstairs area that needs to be evaluated differently. And they've gone to a place now. When I went last year, because I still go yearly, I just pay for my appointments in between the years. And I'm okay with that, just to make sure that my stuff is good. But they're changing it now from every 3 years to every 5 years, as long as you have a good Pap smear. And I'm just like, so how does this work? And I'm just speaking from the people that I know, my own experiences, whatever the case may be. You go through phases in life. And a lot of times, especially like after breakups, whatever the case may be, you go through a small little hoe phase, right? And in your hoe phase, sometimes some people are jumping from every Tom, Dick, and Harry to every Charles, every Jonathan to every Justin to every Lamar, whatever the case may be. You jumping from here, there, and everywhere. And if you're not always being protected or protecting yourself in that process, you don't know what you're contracting. You don't know what you're spreading. And I'm just talking about the bare minimum. Even from a female standpoint, things within our bodies change on a regular basis. What I'm being told now, especially in regards to PCOS, is the concern now is if you're not having a cycle on a regular basis, your endometrial lining is not shedding. And when your endometrial lining is not shedding, their concern is you could end up with endometrial cancer. But if you're not checking me but once every 5 years, how am I going to know that unless something drastic happens to me where that ends up being checked and they're saying, oh God, this is now stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, and there's nothing we can do about it. But if you would have checked me 5 years ago, you see what I'm saying? So yeah, anyway, needless to say, I have an endocrinologist now. A different one, because my insurance is stupid. They don't cover my old doctor, my old medical group, nothing. So I had to get a whole new endocrinologist, whole new doctor, explain my story all over again, which I'm fine with. I have no issue telling people my story about what it is going on with me, what I have. I've told them about the medications and stuff that I'm on right now, different regimens. And so that stuff is ever evolving, ever changing. My life situation is ever evolving, ever changing. We just got married. Well, I got married last year in the middle of the pandemic. But me and my husband just had our wedding ceremony last week. So, the discussion about us having kids and stuff like that, has come up. So the next 2 years, we're talking about possibly having a child, even though he already has a son from a previous relationship. And that is something I want to do. I want to be able to get pregnant, have my own child, carry my own child, things like that. But I think about the fact that I'm 33. 2 years from now, I'm going to be 35. That puts me into the technically high-risk pregnancy category of a geriatric pregnancy. How? I don't know, but whatever. My husband is older. He's 41 currently. So we're talking about me having a child for us when he's 43, which puts him at over 60 when this child graduates from high school. Like, it's the small little things that have to be considered in that, right? And it's just, I want to make sure that we're on a path to achieve the things that we're after, getting to a point where we have a house. We're working on that now to move in the next 6 to 8 months into a house so we can be situated. Health-wise, getting to a point where I'm able to lose weight so that I can conceive and carry a child to term without there being any conflicts, any issues, and things like that come up. So those are the things that I'm currently dealing with. So the main thing that I want to make known as we wrap this thing up here is it's okay to deal with stuff. What's not okay is to continue to push that stuff down and act like it never happened or that it's not there or doesn't bother you, because all it's going to do is fester up. And I feel like for me, at the point last year when I started the podcast, that was the beginning of getting to where I'm at now. there was a lot of stuff for me that was building up, and it was just manifesting in different ways. And it was just turning into this ball of rage and anger. And I felt like I had to swallow it and stomach it. And I just got to the point I was just like, I'm sick of swallowing it. I'm sick of stomaching it. I'm sick of pretending like this shit is not happening and it's happening. Like I'm breaking down, you know, a couple of times a week, just trying to make it through. And I don't want to just make it through anymore. Like I want to be prosperous. I want to be able to have a good future. I want to be able to be happy in what's going on around me and the people that I have around me. And I can't be happy in this moment simply because of all the shit that's going on. So to help eliminate some of that stuff, I have to get this stuff off my chest in some way, shape, or form. Because if I don't, I'm gonna lose it. And when I lose it, it's not gonna be pretty, because here's the thing, I don't know what my limits are. I'm not trying to get there. So again, through therapy, through the podcast, that really, those two things really helped me start to discuss what was going on and then convey those things in healthy ways to the people that were around me, so that I didn't drive them away because of what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, my actions, my reactions to things. I didn't want to lose people in that process. And granted, there were some people that I did lose. But even in hindsight, sometimes losing those people, when I really look back at it, those people were only there to gain what they could from the way that I was at that time. Like I can be so giving and making sure that everybody around me is okay to the point that I'm not okay. They were simply there just to take what they could get from me in those moments, knowing that I was going to be that consistent person to keep producing and giving them what it is that they needed all the time. So losing those people did not, it hurt at the moment, but in hindsight, I didn't truly lose anything. And the people that needed to be around me, they're still here. That's what matters the most. So in that, so if you guys have any thoughts, opinions, feelings, if you guys have experienced anything remotely close to anything related to PCOS that I've experienced or that I've shared, I know this is a long video, but just let me know down in the comments, and I'll be responding to you guys, because I definitely, like I said, want to continue the dialogue. I want to start the conversation more about PCOS. We hear about it here and there in the news. Teen Mom had a spotlight on PCOS briefly because Macy, that's actually in Chattanooga, she has PCOS, even though she's, you know, successfully carried and birthed 3 children, things like that. Like these are still things that affect our society in ways that people don't fully and still currently understand. And we want to put more attention and more spotlight on those things. So like I said, leave me a message, leave me some words of encouragement, or if you guys got anything that you have questions about as far as treatment plans, if you guys have any ideas, meal plan perspective, meal plans, medications, anything related to that regarding PCOS, if you guys have anything that you want to share with me, please feel free to do so below in the comments. Again, I'll be responding. And thank you guys just for taking the time to listen to what I had to say in regards to PCOS and how it's affected me in my life. And I'll continue to share the story with you guys. So I hope to see you guys soon. As always, feel free to like, comment, subscribe if you feel inclined to do so. If not, so be it. Spreading love and light to you guys. Again, continue this journey. It's, you know, we're all in this together. Not to sound cliche like a Disney movie, but whatever. Anyway, you guys be safe. Wonderful day. Have a great weekend. Bye.